Hi everyone, how are we doing? Welcome back. We have the wonderful Julie Gibson Clark with us today. How are you doing today, Julie?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you very much. Yeah, I got up nice and early and which always makes me happy. I always hate to
Good.
do it, but then, when I get up a little bit earlier, it's like, oh, it's so nice and still in the morning. I love it.
I'm with you. Just some time to just sort of settle into the day. Is that
Mhm.
personal preference, or is that part of your longevity protocol? You know, you're trying to sort
A
of see the
little a
sun
little of
early.
both. A little of both. Yeah. I was a swimmer my whole life and you always have to get up early for practice before school. And I just noticed like I like that, when we drive to practice and the world's kind of quiet and that just was always very peaceful to me. And so I think it's not like my body naturally wants to wake up early. In fact, I think if I just kind of had no clocks, it'd probably be like a 7 to, like wake up at 7, go to bed at 11. But
Mm,
it's like by that time the world's awake and it's not so still. So I love kind of, getting up earlier than that.
I'm with you. I think when you get up early though and experience the sun, it perpetuates getting up early again and again, and then
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
you're bouncing out
It
of bed
gets
a bit,
easier.
right?
Yeah.
Definitely,
It definitely gets
definitely.
easier.
So I think there's an interesting place to start is I'd love to know what you think our listeners and me would have had to experience in their life to get to a place you're at with longevity. You know, what experiences did you have that led you
Hmm.
to how you see longevity in your worldview at the moment?
Hmm. I think like probably many people in this field, but most people that kind of go down the route of, you know, I don't want to say extreme health because I'm not extreme, but really taking care of themselves comes from pain. I mean, you come from
Mm,
being sick in some way or not feeling right in some way. And when that becomes intolerable, you seek out how to change your world. And like for me, it was, um, I mean, there was something in my 30s, but it was in my 40s discovering I had heavy metal poisoning and that feeling of just being so, so, so tired and so unable to do the things I needed to do. I mean, I was a single mom trying to raise my son and not to be able to kind of play with him and be with him and take care of the house. It was awful. And I never, ever, ever, ever want to feel like that again. So that's, one of the things. And then now, unfortunately, watching my parents and, the things that they're experiencing in their late 80s, it's like, ooh, yeah, I definitely kind of want to set myself up for success there too. As best I can. Who
mm,
knows what the future will hold, but those are kind of the two things that have me like, especially like when I go into the gym and it's like, oh, like today is going to be leg day and it's not going to be fun. Like there's going to be the Bulgarian split squats, which are just like, oh, why am I doing these every time I do them? But I just think, okay, my mom has Parkinson's. Like, would she looking back now, she probably would have motivated herself to, work out in the gym. And so I just kind of keep thinking, okay, I'm building up a savings account. And that's my main motivator for all the like little things. But the thing that sparked the change was feeling awful in some
mm.
way. And I think that's for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's the sort of research is me search, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
when you sort of go into, I don't know, there's loads of different doors to the same house, right? How people end up investing in their health, seriously, number of different things. How did you get their
Mhm.
heavy metal poisoning of interest?
So, I mean, I don't know if there's any one answer to that. So there's a few things that because there were so many different heavy metals, like antimony, like there were some really weird ones, and tungsten. I mean, obviously I had mercury and lead like many people, but it was all these other ones that my doctor said, quote unquote. She says, "What were you working in like a Chinese like mine?"
Mm,
She's like, "I've never." And like insurance, my medical insurance paid for the cleanup, so it was significant.
well,
And so which in America, that's almost unheard of. But I think so. I was a ceramics major in college. I was very cavalier about wearing like a mask when I would mix glazes. And so I'm sure there was heavy metals in some of those glazes. I am an adventurous eater. I will eat, and I love fish. And so I was eating fish all over the world. I'm in Doha eating, whatever. And like, eating
mm,
tuna every day. And I'm sure there's not even dolphin safe, much less like heavy metal free. So, I've just ate stuff from all over the world, especially fish. And I think, we all know kind of
Mm.
water sources are not so, unless you're careful. So I just had missed the memo on all of that. And so that was the other one. And then also I had, I won't even get into the nightmare of dental experience I had, but long story short, I had a dentist doing a root canal, and what he hadn't realized is there was like a mercury filling in there, and he had punctured the root of my tooth, and kind of sealed me back up for a few days. So I kind of had just mercury kind of go straight to my brain at that point.
Oh, right.
So those are kind of the three places where I'm like, just aside from just the general like living, I think we all do. And then I think the way the doctor explained it to me, she said, looking at your genetics, you have that MTHFR gene. You probably don't detoxify on your own very well. So when things get backed up, they get really backed up. And so I always have to be kind of working on making sure those detox pathways stay open.
Mm. Okay, well, I want to dive into your whole sort of longevity protocol and approach. I guess,
Yeah.
where are you at the moment with it? I know for a while you were, sort of top 5, if I had that right.
Yeah. I was like number 2. And then the rules to the game got changed a little bit. So you had to have 3 tests in 24 months. And, I'm on a budget, so then these tests are like, what, $500 a piece. So I'm just kind of like, that might happen because I'm going to do it once a year. And if I sort of compact the two, then, that could happen. But what I quickly realized, I'm not doing this to be a winner in the Rejuvenation Olympics. I'm doing this, for my son, for me to have a good life. It's not my main motivation,
Mm.
but in the sense that like having a good score, if it motivates other people to do this, without all the $1 million protocols, then great. So in that sense, I think, oh, I should probably get back on there. So I'm doing some things. But yeah, so
Okay.
where am I in the whole thing? So I've had some hormone problems. So that kind of, sped up my pace of aging because I had to cut back. And anyway, we're just fixing those right now. So I'm hoping, because my last pace of aging was like 77% instead of like 65, which was, 77% is still
Still,
really good, but
yeah.
for me, it was like, I was going for like 62. So it was very tough, but I hadn't slept for like months and months, and
Oh,
it's
well,
getting a little better, but
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
sorry, after you go.
I was just gonna say, like, so now I'm discovering like new things, like all of us, right? We're all just sort of learning as we go. And so, I've been doing this very heavy greens and vegetable protocol. And now that I have a following, like people are saying, hey, there's a lot of oxalates in that. You should look into it. And so, I've been kind of looking into like Paul Saladino and some other people that talk about oxalates. And so now I'm like, oh, maybe I should kind of fine tune my I still wholeheartedly believe in plant matter, but, trying to be a little bit more judicious about what I'm picking. So that's kind of, so I'm adjusting all of those. It's just, it's always like fine tuning, right?
Yeah, like anything, everything is in flux, right? Including your pace of aging, right? Some days it's going to go up and down, and I think if you had one protocol and that's it, you should always trying to make it better. So, from first principles, what would you say is your approach going into this, before you maybe test it on the Rejuvenation Olympics?
Mm-hmm. I think it's like looking at those, the three main things, diet, exercise, a few supplements. And I really try to be careful about too many supplements. I think there's a lot of people that just kind of throw everything at it. And I get very concerned about like polypharmacy, like how
Mm.
would they be, and I don't know enough about it. Like I don't, chemistry, like nobody should ever listen to me in that sense. 'Cause I had to take chemistry 3 times in college, and I was taking like bonehead chemistry for structural engineers. So like that stuff is just, it was the first time in my whole life when I got into a subject that I was like, I don't understand this. Like, I don't, I was like, oh, this is how people feel about math. Okay. I get it. I had, anyway,
Yeah.
sidebar. So where were we going with this?
So from first
I try
principles,
to
yeah.
keep this, the supplements like really minimal. And then the third thing, or the fourth thing that I think doesn't get talked about enough is really developing and deepening relationships. I think that's like, it's again, as I watch my parents, as they're older and their mobility, gets challenged. And so seeing people is less. And of course, we're busy adults, so we get down to see them, but not enough,
Mm.
and so I do worry about them in that sense. And just one more motivation, to stay as mobile as possible. But I do think, I think maybe many of your listeners have experienced like falling in love, and just how that makes you feel in your body, and you're just almost like invincible. So there's clearly like something going on there that I think, we have oxytocin and people are kind of pinpointing it, but I think there's a lot more to it that we don't understand. And I think maybe even COVID probably showed people like you can't just be isolated in your house and talk to people on Zoom, although it's a close second, but I think like physically being around people is important. So I'm just really working on like, because I'm kind of an introvert, so I'm like, I'm not going to go out and get like 20 new friends, but deepening the relationships that I have, and those are, that's become very, very important to me as well.
I came across your website probably in the summer, and
Mhm.
your whole approach resonated with me because I'm really familiar with David Sinclair's work. I remember actually picked it up in Doha Airport. You mentioned Doha earlier, the telomere effect
Yeah.
for Elizabeth Blackburn. And
Oh
so
yeah.
longevity and calorie restriction and sort of, the SERT pathway and all these different things resonated with me on a, I guess, intellectual level. But it didn't feel very human. They felt like
Mhm.
I was a lab rat. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll treat myself like a lab rat and try and find some metformin and, I don't know, do all this stuff. But your approach seemed to take the best of science, but sort of make it very holistic and very approachable.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then when you quantify that and you end up being sort of second on the Rejuvenation Olympics, it does display this lovely message of you don't need to be spending billions or millions like Brian Johnson and people like that. This is
Mhm.
within reach of most people, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think people miss that message a lot because people kind of get stuck on it. I'm just going to say it. Like a lot of people will be like, "Oh, she doesn't look 36," and I'm like, "You know what? You're right. I don't." But like my skin health. I mean, again, I was a swimmer and I still don't wear sunscreen. I'm horrible. And my friend's a derm. She's like, "You got to wear it." I'm like, Anyway,
I'm the same. I'm
um,
terrible with sun cream.
but I think people miss the message, which is like, hey, from a biological perspective, we can slow down our aging and not have to spend millions. And I've read all those books too, and I think you read them and then it's like, okay, this is great, but what does it look like in my real life?
Mm,
Because I'm not going to be going off to a lab, and I'm not going to be going, to a concierge doctor. I'm not, so it was always like every time I would read something, it was like, well, what can I do? I
mm,
think that's why like Walter Longo's fasting mimicking diet, in his book on longevity, it was like, so like, oh, okay, well, I could do this, like this is like, I can do this. And so that was nice. I did read David Sinclair's, and I tried NMN. The jury's still out. I switch between NR and NMN, um, and just kind of see if there's, which might be better. And I don't know. I still don't really know. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, there's sort of loads of different pathways to that one, higher
Mhm.
NAD levels, right? But I remember reading Lifespan thinking, all right, cool. Well, David Sinclair's know what he's talking about. He's put what he takes. I'll guess I'll have resveratrol in my yogurt every morning. And I did
Mm.
it for like 6 months and thought, I feel feeble. Like, I feel like, I don't know, I'm not like feeling vigorous and sort of waking up feeling I've got loads of energy. I'm just feeling like a bit feeble. And I
Mhm.
thought, if this is the only pathway to longevity, I don't really want it, right? I'd rather
Yeah.
live, you know,
Well,
I'm
plus,
good.
have you seen all the news on resveratrol? It's
Yeah,
like, like Zippo, you know,
Exactly.
there's just nothing going on there. So yeah, I did that whole thing too. I mixed it with olive oil every
Mm,
morning and the
me too.
Enemin and the resveratrol and all that. And I just didn't feel anything. And I had taken NR before that. And I do feel something with NR. It's not so
Mm,
much that I feel energy, but it takes away that like afternoon crash, you know,
yeah.
and that was like, ooh, this is really nice. Or like if I had, you know, maybe been out a little late with some friends the night before, and like I was more resilient the next day. You know, I wasn't
Mm,
as like dragging. So I felt like NR was a little better, but now I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to try NMN again.
yeah. It's
Um,
funny. I'm sure everyone who drinks a little bit from time to time knows that hangovers notoriously get worse as you get older, right? And I wonder if
yes.
because I've heard people say that as well. When I take NR, I just seem to bounce back a little better. So I wonder if that
Mhm.
is actually declining NAD levels. Who knows? Um, we've
I
pieced it
don't
all
know about
together.
that.
No, neither.
It's funny because like I have a teenager who's sort of, you know, I mean, he's a teenager, right? He's experimenting with all this stuff, but like he's not in enough pain for him to just put it away completely. Because I'm always like, this stuff isn't good for you. You shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. And then it's like, you know what? Now it's just mom telling him. Like I was like, you know what? He's
Yeah,
gonna have to experiment, and then once he wakes up and it doesn't feel good, he'll stop. You know,
yeah,
he'll stop. So
yeah.
that's yeah.
You've got to overcook the turkey once or twice, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, ruin Christmas. I never want to do this again.
You know,
So
I want to go back to something
please,
you
yeah.
asked me, and I just want to like just something that might be helpful for your audience. So when I read a book, you know, say the fasting mimicking diet, that's not what Walter Longo called it. So I apologize. People are going to have to look up the name of his book, but or even David Sinclair, or I go on what's called a try it, you know, and I will do it for like 3 to 4 months. You know, it's like okay, and it's like I'm the N of one experiment, and it's a lot of it is just how do I feel. I'm not always testing my blood markers, but a lot of it is just like, hey, how do I feel, you know, and do I feel any better? Like for instance, like, you know, I had read about berberine, and I thought, wow, you know, this is great. And so and I did use it for like a year. I'm about a year into using it, and now I'm noticing, and I'm pretty sure it's the berberine, but it's causing a lot of dry, like my mouth is very dry at night. And so I don't because when I remove it, I don't have that problem. And so you have to kind of go on these try-its, and you have to kind of, I don't want to say like suck it up a little bit. Like if it's kind of hard, you know, like you have to kind of just do it. Like say it's implementing a new weightlifting program. It's going to be hard and it's not going to be fun, but you're going to have to just do it. Whereas like then once something is kind of habitual and you understand really its impact on you, then you might have to like then you can kind of look at. Does that make sense? Like
It
some
does.
things you have to kind of just like, you know, that inner general in you has to be like, you know, you are worthless and weak and you better get out there and do it and this and that. And then you have to kind of be nice to yourself once you know it's a habit. But I call it try it. And I think we read a book and then you kind of have to say, okay, what resonates with me in this
Mm.
book? And then implement it and see, are there any differences, whether that's, you know, using blood work, whether it's, you know, how you feel in general, you know, and it's good to get real information, but a lot of, for me is just kind of like, how do I feel? You know, I don't have to mark down that, oh, the last 5 nights I've had dry mouth. And then when I remove it's pretty obvious what's going on. So
That resonates.
anyway.
That really does. I think a lot of this quantification world, everyone's tracking everything all the time. I think it's wonderful, but I think it can be detrimental when it becomes a crutch for your own intuition, right? Like,
Yeah.
how did I
Yeah.
sleep? Well, I look at my Apple
Yeah.
Watch, and if it doesn't tell
Oh
me,
God.
right? So
Yeah.
I feel like you've got something on
Yeah,
that.
the sleep tracker is like, because I've got one of these things and I'm just like, oh my God, this thing, first of all, it just never gives me good news, first of all. And when it does, I'm like, I know I had a bad night's sleep. How is this like good, you know? And
Mm,
so it's just funny. I mean, like nights where it's like, oh, you were, you know, is showing me like deep sleep. And I'm like, I was awake. I was just sitting there reading, you know, so how does that deep sleep? Like, you know, so then I'm like, do I trust this thing? Do I not trust this thing? You know, I don't know. So,
yeah,
um,
I've had the
but
same
then I
experience.
kind of, yeah, so I don't know. I like my friend Dave Pasco. He's also in the Rejuvenation Olympics. He thinks the Whoop is a lot better than these rings. So at least the last time I spoke with him, that was it. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try that next. But right now I'm using this ring and, figuring, well, at least like, like as far as my sleep and counting my steps, I really like, and if it's kind of moving in a certain direction, then that's what matters to me, like kind of overall, but try not to get into the weeds of like, okay, last night I had a bad night of sleep, but it's telling me, I got a score of 80. I rarely get over 80, like on my sleep. It's not good.
I'm with you. I stopped tracking. I don't have a Whoop. I had a Garmin thing. I stopped wearing it because I could be exerting myself like there's a gun to my head or I'm being chased by a bear or something. And it's just saying, your heart rate's like, 80. I'm like, it's not. I know it feels like it's coming out of my chest. So that I sort of parked. And then similar to you, it didn't. I was reading in bed and it says, great sleep last night. I'm like, this is bizarre.
Yeah.
So
by the way, the Polar is really good for that. The actual strap, that's the
actual heart rate strap,
heart rate.
Right?
Yeah,
I need to get
that's
that.
the way to do it. Yeah,
do you use one of them?
I do. If I want to go outside and use it, I'm typically on a step mill for like my VO2 max, which is really when I use it. And I noticed, because I used it a few times and I was like, actually, this thing is pretty accurate. It like lags behind in kind of the highest heart rate, but for the most part, it was pretty accurate. Only, maybe off by like 3 to 5 beats, or whatever. And so I was like, I'm just going to keep using this, but I use it like if I'm going to go outside, or say I want to just see like, what am I doing when I'm weightlifting, like especially today on leg day.
But leg day it's gonna spike a bit, right? That's good. So let's start with your non-negotiables, right? What do you think you do during the day that really moves the needle? That that 20% that gives you that 80% benefit that you're experiencing with your tests.
It's gonna go long. So definitely like that piece in the morning, like that's and I know that because like when my son was little, I didn't get that.
Okay.
It was like, it was really like I just always felt off for the day, so I just really like, that's whatever, right now I'm just saying the rosary and there's some prayers that I say. And last year I was reading the Bible, it's just kind of just some sort of spiritual like plug into. And I, people don't need to be religious, but, some sort of, like for me, it just has to be some kind of, there's like that, consciousness that's out there that, we can't explain, but I just like to kind of remind myself that that's out there and have rituals that, remind me of that. And I just sit and, have my coffee and just try to chill for the, a little bit before the day starts. And then the next non-negotiable absolutely is working out. Like that is a non-negotiable on so many levels, not just like, obviously it's good for me, but it's just good for stress. I'm just a nicer person when I'm working out. I'll go on vacation and not do workouts because I'm like, oh, I'm on vacation. I'll just, do whatever I want. And I just start feeling like all this energy in me. So,
So I'm with you, right? I always feel better when I'm working out, and going on a holiday, you think, oh, it's all good, but you don't feel quite as good, right? If you go on holiday and work out, the holiday's 10 times better, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I know. But then I'm like always in between, like, but I'm on a holiday. I don't want to have a schedule. And so I just kind of give myself the room to do whatever. But I typically end up doing air squats, and I'm walking a lot. Like I'm usually doing like 1,500 steps a day, or something like that. But,
so do you, when you said working out, so what does that incorporate? Like, are you lifting weights? Are you doing cardio? How do you think about that?
So a typical week, Monday is VO2 max, and that's all I do because it's just like, it's Monday, and I try to just get it out of the way for the week because it's just like, okay, just get it done. And then I don't do much else. Sometimes I do some ab work that day as well. And then Tuesday, today is leg day. And then tomorrow I'll do my upper body, typically more focused on my back. And then the next day I do another, I'll do a hit, I don't know if you know what a super 8 is. It's like, 1.5 minutes, kind of slow, 30 seconds, like super fast. And what's fun about that versus the VO2 max is because it's only 30 seconds, you can like really turn it up, And so it's helping me get better on my VO2 max as well. So, and I should say the day before, like I'm always doing at least like 10 minutes on the step mill. So even when I go in for weights, I kind of just do like 10 minutes, easy or whatever. Okay, so that's Wednesday, and I'm also doing ab work and back, like lower back work for sure that day. And then the next day is second leg day. Because so what I do is I have one day where I'm using like you say like dumbbells and like I don't have any restriction on my movement. And then the second time that I go into the gym, I'm using more like machines that kind of restrict my movement because I'm very, very limber. And I think it was, I don't know if it was Andrew Galpin, somebody was talking about that. Like sometimes when you're overly limber, like being on a machine can be great to limit your range of motion, so that you don't, and I can lift heavier, so it's kind of fun to see how far, I can push it, which is nice.
Mm.
And then the same thing, then the next day is like, I focus more on my upper body and I'm focusing more on the front, chest and all of that. So I would really, really like, my New Year's resolution was to do like at least 5 pull-ups by the end of the year unassisted, but I'm like, I don't know. We'll see.
How's it going?
It's going okay. I started with a resistance of like 60 pounds and I've moved it down to like 45, but I'm like, okay, at the rate I'm going, I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm, whatever, as long as I'm moving towards that goal. And if I don't meet it by December 31st, so be it. But, maybe I'll meet it by next February.
Do you ever do any negatives?
So you mean
like throw yourself
jump up and then pull down? Yeah, I do that. Yeah. So we have one in my laundry room, and so every time I'm doing laundry, I'm like playing around with that.
Okay, nice. That's good. Yeah, so that's a pretty great strength goal, I think, for everyone, right? So it sounds like your protocol is very sort of weightlifting heavy. And what's the intention behind that?
So again, watching my mom with Parkinson's, it's like, oh God, and it's just creating that savings account because I love, like, this is where I really love Peter Tia. He just explains like, hey, like as you get older, this is going to come down, even if you're like an athlete, it's just, that's going to reduce. So you better, instead of going from like good to bad, like why not just go from great to good? And so that's, same thing with the VO2 max. And I should say like Saturday, I'm, I try to do another like cardio, or I go out walking, or just try to do something outside, or I go for a hike, or, something like that. But it's not, Saturday, Sunday, I try to just like, whatever, no schedule. So
yeah. Okay, nice. Well, again, refreshing because I think a lot of the, I guess a lot of Peter Tia's fan base as well, of like, okay, you've got to be doing at least 60-minute zone 2 a day, right? Or I don't know, something quite unmanageable. So over your week, I guess, as you said, you're doing 10 minutes on the Stairmaster each time. That accumulates
every
up.
time, yeah. And then I've got the VO2 max, and then I'm in the sauna every day not every day, about 4 to 5 times a week.
Oh,
and
right.
I don't know, I think that's kind of like light cardio.
Well, funny thing is, I used to have one of those Garmin, the polar heart things that you mentioned. I don't know where it is, but I actually need to get another one. And I used to do lots of sort of reasonably competitive CrossFit. And the old study of sauna is neck size mimetic, especially if you use it after exercise. And I would always find that consistent. I'd wear the polar thing. I'm looking at on my phone, and I'm just watching my heart rate just continue to rise as I go in the sauna after exercise. So do you sauna after exercise?
Yeah, after.
Okay.
Exactly. And then on the days that, like the VO2 max day and the HIIT day, I will take a cold shower. I used to be doing cold showers every day, and then I've kind of, read the research about, hypertrophy. And so I was like, oh, okay, then yay, I don't have to do them every day.
Nice.
So I only do it like a few times a week, it's like, and I try to do like one on the weekend, just for the like, I think Huberman talks about that anterior mid-cingulate cortex, when you like do something you don't want to do. And it's like, the last thing I want to do on a Saturday is like turn my shower cold, but I was like, do it, like just make yourself do it. And, I'm like growing that region of the brain. And so I think that's important as well. Like that's kind of where that inner general comes in, like, or like your inner David Goggins, it's just gotta like, you just gotta like do it sometimes. And I think that's important. And then at some
Right.
point, you don't want to be beating yourself up either. So
Mm.
there's
Well,
a balance.
it's one of those things, right? Because so I'm talking to you, you seem pretty disciplined, but then you also seem very sort of self-compassionate with yourself. Like you take that time in the morning. How do you think
Yeah.
about balancing discipline and then this stress that
Lollygagging.
comes? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very, like, I know lollygagging is very, very, very important to my brain, actually, like for me. And it was mainly because I'm always been pretty disciplined about exercise, not so much about like food and supplements, but my whole life, again, being a swimmer, and you have to be kind of like, okay, this is when you're doing things. And, so that's always been, pretty easy for me because I just enjoy being at the gym. And actually, let me just give another hot tip for people that are not interested in the gym. Like, get a gym membership, and then like try to go to a gym that's got a sauna or a steam room or something, and then get like all these beautiful smelling soaps and things, so that like after, it's like it becomes this like mini spa experience, and you only use those at the gym. And that kind of got me into like loving the gym. Now I just have this like positive association with the gym. So anyway, so
That's
aromatherapy
genius.
is really important there.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, so then, but I knew, like, as soon as I had my son, it was really interesting because with kids, like, especially my son, he needed a very disciplined, um, kind of schedule. It
Mm.
just really helped him, nurse properly and all those things. And so I was like, okay, I got to get like on my game and do the same thing at the same time. But I noticed, when I, for whatever reason didn't have him, or, it was like that I had this, I could lollygag, and I was like, where I call it, like, I have this thing called right brain house cleaning, where you like go into one room and you pick up that one thing, and you know that it's got to go, like, say I'm in my bedroom. Oh, I got to take this down to the laundry room. You take it down to the laundry room, and that there's something in the laundry room that's got to go into the garage, and then the garage, and you just sort of like ping around your house for like hours. And
Mm.
like, it's like a very right brain way of doing something, and I know that I need a certain amount of time like that, not too much. So I just try to reserve the weekends by saying, like, I have no schedule, no, like, and definitely Sunday, I make no plans with my friends or any of that. I mean, I'll still go see people and I still go do things, but I just have to have a day of like no commitments, where I'm just lollygagging, kind
Mm.
of just doing my thing. And I found that that's just the healthiest balance. Like, I was a graphic designer for a while, and I love how it's like, okay, you have this, you guys, A4 size sheet of paper, or 8.5 by 11, and that those are your parameters, but then you can be as creative as you want on that page, and that's why I kind of feel like, okay, well, I've got this week, and I can get as creative as I want on Saturday and Sunday, but Monday through Friday, I got to stick to it, and
Yeah.
I can't question it. I just got to do it, just do it, but then I've got that Saturday, Sunday that's like, okay, whatever.
Again, refreshing that you can, you don't have to be like a drill sergeant 7 days a week, every single hour,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's nice. And I think that there's a point where that just becomes very sort of stressful to uphold. So it's sort of
Hmm.
counterintuitive. Um,
Hmm.
okay, so we've covered your exercise. That's super interesting. And with the sauna as well, I think that sauna exercise stack is a really interesting one. I'm really watching the research quite uh, keenly, I should say,
Yeah.
with the
That's
sauna.
not really based on research. It's just based on like, I go to this gym that has a sauna. It's also like the thing that when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh my, especially in the winter, it's like, oh God, I do not want to get out of this nice bed and like go work
Mm,
out. But it's like, oh, that's right, I get in the sauna, so
yeah.
it's like a motivator. But it's just, that's where, I got to do it all at once. It's
Mm.
because it's there. If it were in my house, I don't know, maybe I'd do it at night. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But that, I think it's such a simple way of behavior change, right? You want to change behavior, you've got to change the structure underlying that behavior, and going to a nice gym where there's nice smelling salts after the
Yeah.
workout. I
Yeah.
think it's super simple but super effective, right? Really
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
takeaway. How do you think about nutrition?
So that is something that is always in flux. I still think it's important. Like, I just kind of go back to, like, I was a backpacker, and I remember like like survival training. And so we had to like do a night in the wilderness without, any planned food. And it wasn't like we were going to go out hunting, like, I mean, we just were eating plants and things. And I just feel like it's important, that, like, I think we somehow evolved, by eating plants, and I think we need to eat animal protein as well. So I just think, like, try to vary it up. I'm been pretty, like, who is it? Sarah Godfrey was saying, like, try to eat a pound of vegetables a day. And I just, like, that just seems like it's not that hard of a metric to meet, especially, like, I try to do half of those as greens, but I'm just kind of in flux on, like, how, like, since I'm doing this every day, I really should be careful about, like, anti-nutrients. So, like, that's oxalates and goitrogens, and just trying to either cook, like, I cook my broccoli, or I cook certain things to keep the goitrogens at minimum, or the oxalates at minimum, or just picking different, there's tons of greens that don't have high oxalates. So I'm
What
just
are
trying to.
oxalates and goitrogens? Or
Yeah, I know, right? I
yeah,
did. So oxalates are something that are in a lot of plant matter, and, like, spinach is probably one of the highest, spinach and rhubarb. And what happens is they bind to calcium in your body. And so if you're, like, say have a bunch of spinach, and maybe you're not eating any cheese with it or any calcium in your gut, it's going to get into your bloodstream, and it's going to bind with calcium in your blood, and it creates these little oxalate crystals, and it can apparently can hurt your joints. And I do experience joint pain from time to time, so I was like, oh, let me experiment with this. So that, I've just been trying to up my, I won't take calcium, but I'll try to, like, up my dairy consumption with yogurt and cheese and things like that. But, and then lowering, like, making sure I'm not having, like, spinach, chard. Those two were the ones in my diet that were kind of high in oxalates. So I've kind of eliminated those and just brought in, like, regular lettuces that typically are lower. And then goitrogens are another anti-nutrient, typically in a lot of the, like, the broccoli, the cabbage, I think Brussels sprouts, like that kind of family, cruciferous vegetables. And they can block the absorption of iodine in your thyroid. So you have to be careful. But again, like, with that, if you can cook them and pour off the water, I know it brings down the nutrient content somewhat, but it also brings down the goitrogen content. And then just making sure that you get a little extra iodine. So I might chew on some seaweed, or I might, have some sardines, or, that
okay,
kind of stuff.
sort of balance it out. That's interesting. So do you try and hit that pound of vegetables every single day?
Yeah, and I don't always reach it, I mean, especially on the weekends, like, I'm like, I don't know, I probably do because I crave them, but I yeah, I get pretty close almost every day.
Okay, great. And then, but you're not following, so pretty plant-based, but with a good amount of animal protein
Yeah,
alongside
so
it.
then I do 100 grams of protein a day, and I don't count the plant protein. So 100 grams of, like, meat, eggs, cheese, yogurt, like, I only count those. I won't, and I know
Right.
the vegans out there are screaming, and they're right, but I weigh 130 pounds. My lean mass is 100. So I figure I need 100 to 130. And I figure, okay, if I just shoot for 100 in the animal protein, I'm probably getting who knows how much in the plant matter, but
Yeah.
so there's the extra 30. And if I get more than that, like, hey, that's cool,
Wonderful. Yeah, it's that's definitely a good thing to shoot for sure. And do you find, since you've been trying to hit that protein target, you feel noticeably different in the gym? Are you recovering better? Things like that?
I don't want to say I felt, like, super different. I just noticed a difference in my skin, like, it just seems to glow. And that's really, really, really nice. That to me is an indicator that something's working. But I wouldn't say that, like, I could go a couple of days without veggies, but I just start feeling, like, sluggish, I guess. I don't know. And I don't know if that's just an addiction speaking, or, like, because, I mean, just like sugar, right? If you go a few days without sugar, you start getting kind of cranky. That doesn't mean the sugar is good for you, So,
Yeah.
which I keep that pretty minimal, but, like, we just had Easter. I mean, I'm going to have some chocolate, and I had some jelly beans, and,
Yeah, it was a chock apocalypse here. It really was. I mean, everything, it went out the window. especially when there's
Well,
chocolate that's specifically meant for my niece and nephew. I'm like, oh, it just tastes so much better. It really is.
oh,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
For me though, luckily, like chocolate, like hurts my joints. So it's like I notice like chocolate and especially dark chocolate. It's like if milk chocolate, I can kind of get away with, but dark chocolate, ooh, it's like
interesting.
the next day for like 3 days. Same thing with coffee. I'm still experimenting with coffee. I've been like trying different brands and like different ways of preparing it because it's
Yeah.
just I know it's so good for you and it feels so good, to have
Mm,
coffee. And then as I'm reading about, like I used to have green tea every morning and I've kind of eliminated that until I figure out a brand that doesn't have any microplastics in it, because, like everybody, I'm just reading all this stuff as it comes in and kind of going, oh, yeah, I've been having green tea every day and and I won't do the whole thing where you got to just do the leaves. It's like so messy and
yeah.
I'm like, "Ugh, it's too
Yeah.
early in the morning for all that mess."
I'm with you there for sure. So you add coffee in that diet mix as well, but like what, a cup or two a
Mm.
day
Oh
ish?
God, not even. It's not even. Yeah, and then it's like mostly decaf. I can't handle the caffeine.
Yeah,
So
really?
like,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, like, yeah. I feel like my son is like on these energy drinks. He's like, yeah, mom, you need to like have that before you go work out. I'm like, no one wants me on an energy drink. I will
Okay.
be talking to everybody. I will like. I'm just hyper beyond, and then I can't sleep. I won't be able to sleep that night. So
Yeah, I gave up caffeine. I'm pretty chronic caffeine user, guilty as charged. But I gave up caffeine for a whole, well, I guess 3.5 weeks, and it was really interesting. The first week was just super hard, and then
yeah.
the number one thing is sleep is so much deeper. I mean, anecdotally, I didn't
Hmm.
measure anything, but yeah, super, super interesting.
Yeah.
Probably should have
Yeah.
measured it.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. I totally agree. I've gone, without completely without caffeine at times too. But yeah, I mean, because green tea has a little bit, but I try to
Mm,
keep it pretty minimal. So now it's like the coffee, and I'm not doing coffee every day. I'm just like, today because I got up a little earlier. I was like, okay, I'm gonna make a cup of coffee tomorrow morning, but it's half calf. I can't
okay,
like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Gentle steps.
yeah.
Caffeine slippery slope for sure. The other topic, which is sort of adjacent to nutrition, is fasting. All the
Yeah.
research is around calorie restriction and how mice live longer, or these different things. How do you think about calorie restriction? Because there's a lot of, I guess, longevity leaders who swear by it, and there's other ones like the Dave Pascoe who, most of the time he's not in a calorie deficit at all. So how do you think about that?
Yeah. Um, Well, first of all, like to live every day in calorie restriction, I just don't think that's good. Like, I really don't think that's good. And same thing. I just kind of go back to like our ancestors. I'm like thinking they would have had feast days, especially when they hunted an animal and they would have ate every ounce of that thing. Like I just and honey, I'm sure they found their way to honey. And so what I do is I've decided that I just going to do a fasting mimicking diet 4 times a year. So every quarter. I've just, decided that's what I'm doing. And then the rest of the time, I don't ever count calories. I just worry about those two metrics, the pound of vegetables and 100 grams of protein. And I feel like all the other stuff kind of takes care of itself. So I don't know if I'm technically in a calorie deficit. I'm not losing weight, so I shouldn't. I probably am not. but um, but then I just do this fasting mimicking where I don't remember how much it is, but I'm definitely on a calorie deficit for 5 days, and sometimes I'll do it for like 6. And in the past, I've done like the plain water fast. So by all means, people, you don't need to go out and buy the fasting mimicking diet. In fact, hot tip, you can like put into chat gpt, design a fasting mimicking diet for you, and then when it comes back with like foods you don't like, you can ask it to I do Valter Longos because it's just so easy to like, it's all prepared because it's already like you're not feeling very good and your brain isn't, it's just so easy to like grab what he has. But if you were to do your own, you can put it into chat gpt, and I would encourage people to make it all ahead of time so that you're just grabbing stuff.
Mm,
um and I've done water fasts in the past for like 4 or 5 days. I usually get to day 4 and I'm like done, done and dusted. But I try to like, you know, squeak out an extra morning or so. But the fasting mimicking diet, just compared to a water fast, is so easy. I mean, it's just so easy. So I'm just going to stick with that for now. And I, I, I mean, who knows, right? I don't think there's any way to measure. don't know. I don't know if there's any way. I mean, maybe there's a pace of aging. Like if you were taking the pace of aging, like on a fully fed state and then in the fasting state, I wonder if that would make a difference. I don't know, but I don't have $1,000 to test that. So
Yeah, it's a really interesting one because, well, I mean, yeah, you might know something that I don't, so please jump in and enlighten me if you do. But we don't have a signal in the body for autophagy. Yeah, you can't measure
yeah,
that. So
yeah,
fasting for, I don't know, 24, 48, 52, whatever it is, all these longer fasts, 5 days, you're getting autophagy, but also getting loads of autophagy, which is exercise as well. So it's like, well,
hmm
is the lemon worth the squeeze? I don't know. And then
yeah,
prolonged fasts, well, okay, maybe there's like a lot of cellular cleanup, but again, is exercise just superior? Um, so yeah, I don't know where I sort of stand on it. I want to do a couple of long fasts a year, but yeah, I don't want to live
yeah.
every day in a deficit.
Yeah, no, and I don't think that's healthy. I mean,
No.
again, even I just don't think, yeah, I don't think that's healthy. But I will say, when I do a fasting mimicking diet, I just did one recently, and I used a few extra supplements. Typically, on a fasting mimicking diet, I kind of like put my supplements away, and I just really try to just focus on that. But I thought, let me add some glutathione. I add some charcoal. I added magnesium, extra magnesium threonate at night to help me sleep. Something else I added, some vitamin, I think it was vitamin C, and it was weird. I like, for the first time since, I remember the first time I did a fast a long, long time ago. I was living in Dubai, and that's when I read Jason. It was before I found Walter Longo, and I felt Jason Fung had this book on fasting, and I, wanted to lose like 4 pounds, and I was like, okay, let's just do it, and and I hit like day 3, and I was like, whoa, like I felt like I was on, sorry, but like cocaine. I mean, I just
Mm.
felt like I was like on, like, wow, this feels so good, But I hadn't, I had fasted and done fasting mimicking diet since then, and I never experienced that again. And so I don't know if I just like went into ketosis or
Mm.
something, but this last fasting mimicking diet, I hit, it was like day 3 or day 4. And I remember I was like coming home from the gym, and in the gym, I just don't really do much. It's like I might do the 10 minutes on the step mill, but even slower. And I would do my sauna, and that's it. I don't weight lift. I don't do anything else on those 5 days. And I was like leaving the gym, and it was like, wow, like I just felt so good. I don't even know how to explain it. I just
Mm.
felt this like peace within me that I just hadn't felt in the long, long time. And I just know that something's happening on a cellular level. And then I come home and I'm like, oh, I want to clean that, and I want to clean that up, and I got to organize this. And I just have this very strong belief that what happens on the outside is what's happening on the inside. Like, and this is just my own little theory, but I make up, like, when I see people that live in like really, really messy environments, I'm like, oh, they must have this very like right brain type of thing, or maybe their cells are kind of all, messy, like, just, it's
Mm.
just interesting to me. I just really think our outside reflects our inside, and again, that's just a belief. There's no science to that whatsoever. So anyway, but it was an interesting thing. So I feel like I know something's happening on a cellular level. I don't know how we measure it, or can prove it, because again, chemistry eludes me, and
Yeah,
biology even further. So
that's super interesting. Have you ever taken any exogenous ketones?
I have not. I had a company send me a drink with exogenous ketones, but I didn't notice any major difference. I mean,
Yeah,
it kind of made me feel good, but I don't know if maybe because it was a drink and not, like, maybe it didn't have enough. I don't know. Because one of my
who
friends
knows?
swears by them. She says they're amazing.
Well, they're great if you're already in ketosis, and that feeling you were describing, I think the closest thing I've got to it as well has been fasting and then adding exogenous ketones in, and like,
Yeah.
testing my blood of what my concentration of BHB is, ketones in the blood.
Yeah.
And yeah, a couple of times with exogenous ketones on a fast to get above like 3.5 millimoles, which is reasonably high. That sort of feeling of euphoria, but it's very calm. It's very bizarre, but
Yeah. It is bizarre.
perhaps we're talking about the same thing. I don't know. But all the
Yeah.
spiritual texts mention some form of fasting as well, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, for some reason, right? I mean, I think it's good to do a cleanup, especially in our world. Like, I mean, come on, like I'm going to have the jelly beans, I'm going to have the chocolate, and like we found this new bakery in town that's got the most amazing sourdough bread, and then they make
Oh,
sourdough croissants and sourdough pastries. So, I'm having those like every so often, and again, it's like I just know, okay, I'm going to do that fast, and hopefully it'll clean up, any cellular debris, because I do think sugar is pretty bad for us. I'm pretty clear on that one.
oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that seems obvious. In fact, that was one of the first books I ever read. I remember way back in high school, there was a book called Sugar Blues, and I was just like shocked, like, oh my God, it can be that bad for you, and then experimenting, and it was like, God, this really is addictive. And it took me until I started doing this whole protein, and when I added, 100 grams of protein in the pound of vegetables, like that pretty much just destroyed any remnants of a sugar addiction. That was like the easiest way to just not have sugar.
Wow. I'm going to clone that hunt. I mean, my protein intake's reasonably high as it is, um, but I'm going to clone the vegetable thing. A pound of vegetables a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, and just do some research on the oxalates. I'm gonna try to do a post on it on my YouTube channel too, because I'm just learning about it. And it was just because of people, writing back to me saying, "Hey, that has oxalates, that has oxalates," and I was like,
Mm,
"What is this?" And trying to research it a little bit more. And as I'm reducing it, I am feeling a little bit of the what they call an oxalate dump. Your body kind of starts then dumping it, and you get a little bit of symptomatic, and I've had a few symptoms. So
okay,
it's like,
interesting.
maybe there's something to this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to watching your post about it. That sounds
Yeah.
super super fun. When it comes to supplementation, I know you keep it quite minimal. What are
Mhm.
your go-to top supplements?
Yeah. So I take, it's funny, I'm actually even rethinking this one, but I don't rethink this one. Vitamin D3, K2 every morning. That's a non-negotiable. And
What
I test my vitamin D levels.
what
So
dose?
I was doing like 5,000 IU, and then I think my vitamin D levels were up, like they were over 80. So my doctor was like, why don't you pull back on that a little bit? You don't really want to be up, past 90. Um, so I pulled back. I think I'm at like 3 to 4,000 IU on that one. And then I take my nicotinamide riboside, and right now I'm about to switch back to NMN. And again, I'm just trying to do like 6 months, and see, if there's any difference. And then what else am I taking in the morning? Oh, another non-negotiable is the fish oil, because I mean, I do eat sardines, but if you need, I don't know, what are they showing, like 2 grams a day, 1 to 2 grams a day for longevity? It's like, even if I eat sardines, that's only like 1,300 milligrams.
Mm.
So I'm only doing that once or twice a week. So I still supplement with the omega 3s. Um, so those are all my non-negotiables. I would have said a B complex is also my non-negotiables. And I don't really do any of that for longevity. This is just like what makes me feel good every day, like I just, and I know for my detox pathways. But the
Mm.
vitamin B complex, I'm going to experiment with kind of reducing some of that, and
Is that
going to just
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Is that because of you mentioned you had the
Hmm.
MHTER gene? I think.
MTHFR. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
are you conscious of what form those B vitamins are in?
Yeah, absolutely. But with eating a lot of veggies, particularly greens, a lot of that folate is in there. And I am, again, I don't know if it's like oxalates, or if I'm over methylized a little bit between supplementing and the greens and the veggies. So I'm just going to experiment with that right now too. But otherwise, I would have said, a B complex, which I kind of switched between a few different ones. Um, I feel like there's something else. It is all on my website. So if I'm leaving something out, oh, magnesium, that's another non-negotiable. Like, even when I'm fasting, like I take, um, I take anywhere between 600 and 900 milligrams of magnesium a day, in different forms. So like, I've got magnesium, um, taurate that I take because it doesn't really upset my stomach. And I think it's good that we have a little extra taurine.
Mm.
I take magnesium malate, which is in my longevity supplement, which we'll talk about in a second. But then, and I take magnesium 3 and 8 at night to help. And then if magnesium 3, if it's not in my budget, because magnesium 3 and 8 is quite expensive, then I'll switch to magnesium glycinate, which does work as well. But I just noticed, again, on the sleep tracker, whether it's true or not, but my deep sleep is higher with the magnesium threonate than it is with the glycinate.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
I,
But
I used
again, I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I used to sell a sleep supplement in a previous business, and we went back and forth a lot on those different forms. And actually, probably the right answer was to have both, right? But
Yeah.
you mentioned a supplement that
Yeah.
you're working on,
So
or?
I take, so for longevity, I take this Novos. Well, longevity, I also take NR, which is first thing in the morning, or like I said, NR or NMN. And then I take Novos, which is like a conglomeration of a bunch of different things. And again, yes, I have an affiliate code with them, but I do not work for them, and they're not sponsoring me in any way. It's just that a supplement really helped my body slow down its pace of aging, and especially in a particularly stressful time. So I know that it really, really works for me.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I was like an 8% slowdown. So, and there's just all kinds of good things in there. Fisetin, I never know how to say that.
Yeah.
Nobody corrects me, so I don't know if I'm saying that right. But and low dose lithium is in there. There's calcium alpha ketoglutarate is in there. Magnesium malate, rhodiola, ginger. I'm forgetting a few things, but that's kind of the only supplement I'm taking for longevity. I don't really venture too far from there. I was taking quercetin for a while, but I don't think it was doing anything. If anything,
Mm.
it was not. I have COMT as well, and that can slow down the clearance of estrogen, and that might have been what contributed to my estrogen dominance. So,
Wow.
yeah,
So your whole protocol is super approachable. It's
yeah,
not. There's nothing out in there. It's like, okay, that's a bit out there.
yeah.
Everything
No, we're not
is
taking hundreds of pills or any of that
no.
stuff. I mean, everyone keeps telling me like, you're. Somebody was talking about you really need to try spermidine, and because I'm always worried about my hair. I think that's the first thing that goes when I have like health problems. My hair just starts falling out, and I'm about to test creatine again because I've just felt like it makes my hair fall out, but everyone says no, it doesn't. So I'm waiting until May 1st, and then I'm going to start creatine again and see if there's any difference. But
What dose creatine?
well, I'm going to start lower just because, like, I thought, oh, because I was going at like 5 milligrams, and I just noticed like a bunch of hair falling out. But it could have been also that was at a time when my estrogen dominance was kind of like ramping up, which
Mm.
also makes you lose your hair. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it's that. So I wanted to just kind of make sure I have that my hormones all balanced, and then I was going to start it. So again, later this week, and I'll do it for a month, and I can tell because like when I'm showering, like hair will come out, and if it start feeling like a lot, then I'm just going to not do it. So
Mm.
um
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So,
interesting, creatine. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm doing 25 grams a day at the moment, which is quite
Oh
high.
my god,
I know.
that's very high.
Well, it's just like an experiment for April, and
Mhm.
actually, the first week felt a bit like stimulated, if I'm honest, and then it seems to be pretty fine now.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. There's a lot of good. I mean, like my son takes it for working out, but I know the doctor that we had taken him to for, just like general health issues. He had fell when he was a baby and had some brain issues, and she was, all about, the low dose lithium and the creatine for your brain. Not, this was long before he was working out. So,
Well,
like a high amount too. So, yeah. So
interesting.
yes, I'm keen to try it again. It's a very affordable supplement. The spermidine is a little like that's kind of expensive, but I want to try it anyway. Um,
Yeah,
so
we've had
yeah,
Daniel Lewis on the show, and he's a big advocate of liposomal spermidine. I know that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
a few last questions before we leave you, Julie. If you could put anything on a billboard, what would you put on?
Mm.
And sorry, I should preface, everyone's going to see this billboard as well.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, that is a great question. Do you have another one for me, and I'll come back to that. I'll
Yeah,
marinate on that while I
absolutely.
answer. Okay, okay.
The other one is, if what important truth do you believe that very few people agree with you on?
Okay, 100%. I think beauty is really important for us. And I think there are some people that agree, but I think as our society has modernized, like we've forgotten the role of beauty. And I'm not talking about pardon me, Kardashians, but I'm not talking about Kim Kardashian or like Instagram beauty. I'm talking about, the beauty of for me, it's a cathedral, or going to an art museum, like that kind of classic, spending time in great architecture and even nature, just the God, that beautiful order of things, and spending time with that, I think is really, really important to us. And I think it's also important for us to, um, I certainly know it's my life's mission, like it's to express that beauty when I create things in the world. And in fact, if you look at my Instagram wall, I'm struggling with that, but it's really like, that's a really very important to me. And I don't necessarily mean that everything has to be all polished and pretty and perfect. That things come from this intention of beauty, I think is, when we create, is really, really important. And I think we've forgotten about it. And I hope we return to it. Now, as far as a billboard, I would say, yeah, it's something like, be gentle with yourself, but sometimes you need an inner general. like you gotta,
Well, it's funny
just, just make yourself do it, but also be gentle with yourself.
Yeah, but I think that's
Be
the wisdom
kind.
of knowing when to do which, right?
Yeah. But I think we can always, even as we're being like, your inner general, you can still talk kindly to yourself. Like, I noticed it when I would hear my son, like he would put himself down, like out loud. And he was like, I don't know, 7, 8 or something like that. And I was like, oh, don't talk to yourself like that. And then I was like, wait a minute, I talk to myself like that. Like, that's not okay. That's not okay. And it's not like, why not? Like, be your best cheerleader. Like, you got this. Like, like just like when I'm doing my VO2 max, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to fall off this thing, and it's like, no, you got this. You got this, so there's some balance there.
Definitely. I mean, life's hard enough, right? And I remember once someone I met, and when I first met her, where there's this guy who was with us, and I was like, oh God, he talks himself up all the time, doesn't he? He's like, yeah, but you got to be your own hype man. I was like, oh yeah, you do. I like that. That always stuck with me. Julie, you're an absolute gem, and I really appreciate you spending some time with me. It's been really, really fun. Nice to chat.
Thank you. Thank you. Really, I appreciate your time.
Well, it's been super fun. Maybe we'll do it again sometime. But where can we keep up with your work, with your journey? Where can we find you?
Yeah, so Instagram is the best place to find me, especially if you want to, like, if anybody wants to reach out, like just reach out on Instagram. I'm there, all the time. I do have a website, juliegibsonclark.com. Oh, Instagram is at Julie Gibson Clark. And my website, you can put emails in there as well. I just am a lot slower to answer. And then I do have a YouTube page at Julie Gibson Clark, and I'm just slowly going through just cooking, like what to cook for the week, or like I'm about to do something on like how to put a week together, how to create that shopping list. And like we said, oxalates. So I'm slowly, like, I don't want it to be overly educational in terms of all that information that's out there, because there's so many people, that's already out there, but it's just more like, how do you implement all this stuff? And, here's what to cook to make that happen. So.
Wonderful. Well, look, we'll put all that in the show notes. And yeah, once again, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.